Mm. Hello, beautiful souls. That you're finding your day or evening. Well, I hope you're finding gratitude no matter what you're doing, what time of day it is. I was thinking about this one. If you're interested, I've done other videos with a similar beginning title. I explain a little bit more about who I'm speaking to. So I was thinking about it, and this is something that it's funny. I probably was the most consistent at this and also had the greatest challenges at it. My person for a long time kept saying that I needed to be consistent, and it was interesting trying to do that in a codependent dynamic where he was codependent to like 15 other people. Because, I never wanted to be the wrong role for him. Like, typically, I am the type of person that, like, on my own, by myself, I'm pretty consistent. I'm actually fairly boring most of the time. My life has definitely not been boring lately. I don't know that it's ever been boring since I had a friend that I met at like 13, and then I met Rudy at 15, and I don't think my life has ever been boring since then. Anyways, it was interesting because I was thinking about how often we do that in relationships. Like, there's two things that we do, especially as women. Like, I'm not saying the men don't do it, but definitely it's women we do it. Is to where we're two different people when we're in relationship and when we're out of relationship. And then we might be a different person when we're like in a friends with benefits arrangement or a polyamorous dynamic or, you know, so on and so forth. And that can make it really confusing, when you're especially if you think about it from the guy's perspective, like when we go out to meet them the first time, maybe you're the type that gets all dressed up, but then like 90% of the rest of your life, you really don't dress up. It's not that it's a bad thing, but like if you spend all that time getting all hot and bothered and dressed up for like only the first 3 months and then it's done, first of all, that shows that you probably have some attachment traumas because usually that honeymoon phase when you're in a healthy, emotionally secure place should last at least a year. They say 2 years is pretty common if you have two people that are mostly emotionally secure and healthy. But either way, even within those dynamics, there's plenty of us who go into relationship and we're in the preening mode and we're prim and proper and stuff like that. Whatever your version of that is, it doesn't have to be getting gussied up in dresses and stuff like that. It wasn't for me, but we all have some sort of way that we kind of do that. And guys do that too, but then they're a little different about it. So we might get dressed up in our own ways, treat them better. Maybe it even lasts up to 6 months. And that's usually about the time that we ladies, we have to own that we stop putting in as much effort. And I'm not saying that they don't. I'm just speaking to you, lady to lady, okay? Because we got to own our parts without needing to look for what he did wrong first. Because when we're adults about our stuff, we can allow them to be adults about their stuff, and then we don't have to do the drama in the middle. You know what I mean? And then the funny thing is, a lot of people are like, "What happened? Well, where would the intrigue be?" Well, that's when you can be theatrical and create situations that you enjoy together, rather than constantly getting into communication challenges because ladies where we get whether we have a healthy honeymoon stage of a relationship that's a few years long or whether we have a fast one, either way we get to a point to where we start looking for something to be wrong. And it's not, I don't think I've ever talked to anybody or ever had the experience myself to where it's been like one day you're just like, I'm going to look for everything wrong in this relationship. No, it's just usually like that honeymoon phase is kind of a limerence stage. If you look up limerence, you can learn a lot about it. But it feels like love. It's a lot of hormones. It's a lot of newness. In polyamory culture, they would call it new relationship energy. right? There's a certain thing about it. And it's fine to enjoy that. It's just like think about what you're doing to your partner. If you are not being observant of your own patterns in that and aware of where you are with attachment traumas and love languages, if you're not in a space where you understand that not only is a man going to process different from you because he's an individual and probably a different Enneagram type, astrology sign, line up with different tarot cards, all sorts of stuff. So he's going to already process different just as an individual. And then you have a lot of various different complicated layers of gender identity and things like that that we as women cannot fully experience. We can empathize with a fair amount of it, but we can't, and we really shouldn't want to. Our experience is delightfully complex on its own, isn't it? You know? Though the thing is, like, when we stop and take time to think about our thinking, when we stop to bring self awareness to our own patterns, we start to feel like more empowered to be able to, well, one, predict how we're going to feel. And then that makes it easier to really see other people as individuals and recognize that, when we might be feeling like we want a little more attention, like maybe this is a pretty common one. It's not quite the I'm going to look for things wrong, but it might be that, like, you start to settle into a relationship wherever it is, like, the limerence feelings kind of die down a little bit. And it's kind of like if you had a stop of dopamine being flowed to your brain. Like if it just like slowed down, you're like, wait a minute, I don't feel so great. And then we'll get into this place where maybe our guy is not like bringing us a flower every week, or doing something. And he could have been doing it up to like, let's say it was a year. Like, let's say he did it for a year and 1 week he doesn't do it. And then suddenly we're like, oh no, he's not giving me that same attention. And then we battle with ourselves, like, is it silly of me that I really want more? I want that on a regular basis. Is it going to be weird if I don't have it? And then we get to a place, usually gossiping with our friends about how, oh, he should do that. Don't you let him get away with that. And we get all bossy with each other in private. You know that we do. Hmm. That's definitely something we need to evolve out of also, because it doesn't help anything. It's better if you surround yourself with friends who, instead of saying, you better go harder and you better do this, you should really surround yourself with friends that are like, your partner's pretty awesome. I bet he just got wrapped up in work, huh? And we should talk to family members who are similar. It's like, you know what, you guys are adorable, and why don't you just tell them? Why don't you just tell them, honey, I really like that you do that flower thing every week. Could you keep doing that like forever? I'll make some exceptions for a few moments, but can you do that? It's so important to me. Can we have a punishment kink to where if you don't do it, I can take some points and you can add them up later and do something bigger? You know what I mean? Like there's so many different ways to approach the times when we feel like we're missing an affection or we want a little more attention. And when you take the time to learn what those are, then you can go to a place to where rather than feeling like you're powerless because if you say something you feel needy and if you don't say something you definitely feel needy and stuff like that, and being surrounded by people that are like go hard or don't do anything or yeah life sucks, like if we set ourselves up so that from the get-go we already know who we are. We've had enough time, if you take time to not just be by yourself, but be grateful and adoring of, solitude, dating yourself, doing stuff like that, and not antisocially. Yes, I'm aware that a lot of you listening are somewhat agoraphobic. I hold space for you, though. Get out in the world. Do what you need to. Reach out to somebody that a mental health professional or somebody. You got this. You can do this. And then for everybody else, make sure that you're like before you even think and you might be in relationship, and if you are, then follow the stuff anyways. But let's assume, well, let's go both ways, okay? So, for those of you that might be wanting to meet a new person, or maybe you're on the twin flame journey and you're thinking about dating, maybe you know you got a little while for your DMs done doing his thing. Um, Before you even get there, think about the title of this: Be Who You Say You Are. Okay? So, it's important before you even feel ready to go sleep with somebody or date somebody or be poly or whatever, like paint the town red. Before you do that, take the time, if relationships are in your future and you want them to be in some way, shape, or form, romantically, to sit down and figure out who the fuck you are when you're not in a relationship, who you want to be. What are the things that you would be like, oh, well, you know what? Since I'm a free agent, I'm going to go do this. And then ask yourself, I'm not saying don't do those things, but ask yourself, one, are those things that you would feel remorseful of not having let yourself do if you get into a relationship and decide to get married? And those are things that you would only do when you were single and independent. Like, if the answer is yes, then go explore those things before you get into relationship and be very clear with the people you might interact with that you're just looking for a brief, like, kinky moment. You know what I mean? Even if it's very vanilla, just be clear, okay? Get that stuff out of the way. Sow your wild oats, okay? We ladies have those too. All right? Then then ask yourself, is this thing that I want to do, that I feel free to do if I'm not in a relationship, is it something that I feel like I would still want to do in a relationship, but I would feel somehow obligated or bound to not do it? Like, let's say flirting with people, okay? It's actually a very easy thing to find partners that you can negotiate that y'all can both maturely still flirt with other people and trust each other. So, first of all, you can start a relationship out being clear about what you want. A lot of people get into a place of like old school Christian monogamous, and they go to this place of like, you have to be my everything and I have to be your everything, and we only flirt with each other and we only sit with each other and it's only us, which, look it up scientifically. I mean, it's not impossible. Some couples are good like that, though statistically, most are not, you know? And it's really unhealthy and codependent to be in a place where you feel like you need to be everything for somebody or for them to be everything for you, especially when it comes to emotional responsibility. Even in a relationship, I don't care if you sew each other's hips together, you still need to be responsible for your emotional satisfaction, and they need to be responsible for theirs. Because then, when you're giving to each other, it's always from a place of want, not need, not compulsion, not codependence, not addiction. Is from want. It's because I have this overflowing emotional stability and love, and I want to share it with you. Which, do you know what it's like to be in a relationship like that? It's fucking beautiful. Okay? Do you know how attractive it is for men to know that their woman can do that? Even if they're not there yet, and you're able to hold your own emotional stability while they get there, because you're not bitter or resentful about the way the world has been and is no longer going to be anymore, you could, a man to catch up real fast for a woman like that. I've seen it happen many times. Okay? And so, really, like, it's not even about like, okay, you're single or you got time or this and that, what kinds of things do you want to do. I'm not saying don't do those things, but take the time for yourself and for any future partner you have to look at it and go, how would I be when I'm single? How would I be if I'm in a monogamous relationship? Or how would I be, let's say, if I'm in a polyamorous dynamic? Okay, what ways would you be different? It doesn't mean don't be different in those ways. Don't get all extreme on me. Don't jump ahead yet. I know I talk a lot, but stay with me, okay? So, if you would like, as if you were when you're single, let's say you might go out to the bar all the freaking time, just get wasted, sing horrible karaoke, lay out in your car, like whatever, go home with whoever, do things like that. Maybe think about that. Like, I mean, if that's fun for you, like, don't give a fuck what anybody else thinks. As long as you're being consensual with the people that you're having fun with, then I mean, I don't know, maybe like a atypical relationship. I don't know if atypical is appropriate for that. Maybe a typical relationship is not quite what would satisfy you. I know a lot of people that are like that. Like when they're single, they're out like partying. And then when they're in the middle of a breakup, guess what they go right back to, right? Immediately, bam, right back to the bars, right back to just partying all the time. Doesn't matter what age they're at. The minute that they know that they're done with somebody, that's where they go. And I've seen them through conversations similar to these. It's like, well, like, why are you like? I mean, you seem like you're having a genuinely good time. Like, why wouldn't you just? I'm not saying I'm not saying it's not an expensive lifestyle. I'm not saying any of that. But like, for somebody that could afford it, and likes the attention and do it, it's like, are you sure that like regular relationships, like monogamous relationships, where you don't feel like you can go have this fun, or you line up with people that don't like that you go and do that, like are you sure that regular relationships are what you're looking for? Or even at that, like maybe, pick your person a little bit more selectively. Like look for somebody that also likes that. But in order to do that, you have to make sure you can practice compersion. Because I know a lot of ladies, I know a lot of you ladies who like what you want if you really sat and thought about it, which is deliciously selfish. I mean, if you want it, you can manifest it. You just got to believe in it. But it's a little absurd for most people is that you want to be able to go out and do your partying and do your flirting and do your thing and have your freedom and have a partner who does not do those things. And I'm not saying men don't do that. You may have even been with someone before. Maybe that's why you got like that. I don't know. But what I'm saying is, it's a little hypocritical. If you want to be able to go and party and flirt with whoever you want, and do whatever you want, and do whatever things that you want, and talk to whoever you want, and text whoever you want, and, be able to have your own autonomy, and then to be incredibly insecure with your man when he wants to be able to talk to whoever he wants to talk to, or flirt with whoever he wants to, or go out and do whatever things he wants to do when he wants to do it. You know, in order to be able to have what you want, you have to be able to give what you want, and if you're the type of person that you like doing that sort of thing, like really, like work on your shadows because most of the time people that like doing that only don't do it because their family might not like it or they're worried about their old high school group they're still holding on to might not like it, or things like that. And I'm not saying there aren't plenty of reasons not to live that lifestyle. I'm just saying, why are you worried about people that really aren't, they're not happy either giving you their criticism if you found a way to live in this human existence that you enjoy? Why aren't you doing that? Why aren't you doing that all the fucking time? You probably would run into success accidentally doing that all the time than you would like being in a relationship where you feel like you can't have any fun and I better get back to the housewifey routine and building up all that resentment and bitterness and shit and then constantly looking for reasons to explain your misery so then you start picking at your guy and then suddenly guess what, ladies? That man looks at you and he's like, who the fuck is this? You know what I mean? That's probably one of the most common fears I've heard from both my people and others is that they get afraid, especially of getting married, because it feels like not long after getting married, the woman will suddenly change. Like, and be a completely different person than she was. And then those guys are worried. You know why they're most worried? Is because they want to be able to hold their vows. One, they definitely don't want to be in a situation where it's like they pledge their every bit of their being and soul to you and then go, "Oh shit, I want out." Like, two, they don't want a whole bunch of publicity going around cuz definitely divorces are messy. Mostly because most people aren't able to be emotionally secure before the divorce and then it leads to a messy divorce. In any case, this is the kind of stuff that's for us to own. A lot of times we are not who we say we are in relationships. And so that was like the single option. Like, how would you be if you were single, right? Now compare that. How would you be if you were in a monogamous relationship, okay? I know more women than not usually get into kind of a housewifey mode. It varies to different degrees. But a lot of times, like, it's like when you're single, regardless of your extracurricular activities, like, you probably took better care of yourself because you were looking for partners or you were flirting, you were doing stuff like that. In relationships, do you typically let yourself go? Do you hold on a bunch of stress weight and stuff like that? Because that's something you can most definitely look at before before you get into relationship, and it's something that if you're in relationship that you can look at. And usually, and you can look back at a string of patterns and see, when you were in relationship, did you gain weight? And then when you left a relationship, you lost weight? Or you might be on the other side of the spectrum. Maybe in relationships you lose a ton of weight and you have a hard time eating and then you gain more weight outside. But these are important things to know about yourself. And it's important to look at the patterns like in relationships. Do you become more docile and less passionate? Like when you're single, when you're independent, do you feel like, yeah, I can take on the world? And then in relationships, you're like, oh, yeah, relationships, or, oh, yeah, kids, ugh. Like, do you get like that, ugh? Do you go that way with it? Or when you're in relationships after the limerence stages, which is like, it should be at least a year. Good, healthy-ish couples get to 2 years. And even if you're in the really big attachment trauma style area, 3 to 4 months is pretty typical. Okay. So, like, once you get past that stage, do you still dote on your partner? Do you still fawn? Do you have a cycle that maybe like I mean, it's funny. Most of us are taught to at least somewhat keep track of our like menstrual cycles, but like, how many of you have actually stopped and tracked your emotional cycles, or your like all of us? We all have various different cycles that go on within ourselves at different times. And there isn't like a set map that any particular doctor can give. And on top of that, we keep telling all the doctors that are there that are involved in this sort of thing because they're men that we don't want to hear from them. So it's much better if we look at ourselves and go, okay, what's my mood cycle? Like, how many times in the month do I beat myself up? How many times during the month do I just find myself a funny joke pops into my head out of nowhere and I just laugh no matter whether somebody's there or not. Like, how much time do I take for myself every month, whether I'm in a relationship or I'm single or poly or any of it? Like, how much time do I take for me? And this goes double if you have kids, okay? How much time do I take for me to just sit down, kick my feet off? I'm gonna say like no TV, no electronics. Like maybe you sit outside in the grass and like drink some water and just like think about you. You know what I mean? How often do you do that? How often do you let your partner or let your parents or somebody else watch the kids and genuinely not worry about whether or not they do it right? How often, even, if you got kids or roommates or anybody else, how often are you like, you know what? Even if I know that they're not going to do the stuff right, I'm going to let them do it. I'm going to let them just learn it so that they have their own way. And I'm going to release control to it having to be my way because then I can be more relaxed because then that frees me up to worry about other things. How often have you done that in your life ever? If you can do that, you can feel much more relaxed in relationships and not feel so resentful. It's also good to take a look at things like in your family. Is there a history of like codependence or relationships that like serial monogamy or divorces, things like that? Like, oh, sorry, I got a notification. But like look at that. Look at that for you. Look at that before you look at anybody else's. Like, what was your family's relationship like? Because those are likely to be part of your cycles until you become conscious of them. The great thing is, once you become conscious of them, you can be like, "Oh, I like that one. I'm going to keep that one." Oh no, no, I think that's too much like my mom. I don't want that one, and that one's way too much like dad. I'm going to release that one. That's the really great thing. And once you get to that place, you can experience whether you're single or in relationship a much greater consistency between who you are, between each one. And the even more amazing thing, as if it's not amazing enough to just feel that healing and wholeness within yourself, it's when you either find your partner or get with a partner you've been waiting for, or you are with a partner and you improve this, when you start to be more consistent with, you say you're going to do this thing and then you do it. You say that you do things in a certain way and then you do it. Like being exactly who you say you are. Like, do you know how attractive that is? Like, I mean, for men or women, wouldn't you love a guy who's like that? Now, here's the thing that you have to recognize in what I just said there. A lot of you ladies have to get to a place where you recognize one of our weird universal roles currently, until somebody manifests it differently, which is possible. Maybe I'll talk about that next. But right now, as the current reality sits, it's very unlikely you're going to get a man out of a box who is like already everywhere you want him to be. But here's the thing. You know what? I'm not going to talk about how to manifest it different because you know what? A lot of y'all ladies are ungrateful for what you have. Do you know how fun it is to help a guy find himself and find out that the ways that he would mold himself are exactly what you'd want in the first place? Like, that is so fucking delicious, and it's so much better than, like, beating a guy over the head to be exactly what you want him to be because you feeling too lazy to keep looking through the pool of fish for a relationship that's compatible. Okay? Like, there are so many things to enjoy about what you can get. So, yeah, it's unlikely you're going to immediately manifest a guy that is everything you want him to be. But here's the thing, like, look up almost any relationship coach on YouTube, especially the really popular ones. I watched most of them for years, like even before separation. Like I've always been that person, okay? You know what most of them say about a man? Like a man will move mountains. He will find a way to make a mountain tall enough to get up and grab that moon and bring it to you when he loves you and he loves himself. That's the key thing. That's the thing I feel like they're always missing. Like, if he loves you, because that puts it on the like, if we're lovable enough. No, that's not how it works, honey. He's got to love himself first before he can give you that. But here's the deal, if you come into any relationship, let's start with that side, okay? Whether you're looking for someone or you know who they are and you're just patiently working on yourself until they're available. Do you know how not just attractive it is? Do you know how much easier relationships are when you can come into it and know that you're in a comfortable space with you? And you can see a guy for exactly who he is in the moment there. And yes, you can see all that delicious potential. A lot of us are very attracted to potential, right? For various different reasons. And if you can hold the vision of that potential without nagging, without constantly reminding him of all his potential, if you could just hold it in your head that you always know that that's him, you have faith that he'll take from your example. Do you know how much easier relationships are like that? Do you know how much easier it is to live as an individual like that? And like you could walk into almost any relationship with anybody. Like they always say, well, look out for this one. That one might be a deadbeat or that one might be a player. You know how many guys have like changed their stars to be with a woman that like they feel like actually has their back and who is who she says she is? Like lots, lots. I've seen guys completely like upend entire relationship, like marriages that are tied into all sorts of like real estate and stuff like that. Like it's happened a lot. You know what I mean? Like leave rich families and stuff like that. Leave behind cults and various different things because he found a woman that showed him how to love himself just by loving herself and inviting him in on it, being warm and inviting, being receptive and flowing, like feminine energy, right? And that's kind of where we get back to the spaces like, be who you say you are. And always, I mean, I know that a lot of people come in and listen new. Oh, you'll understand. I'm the type of person I always mean you do it for yourself first. It should be you and. It should never be do it for them. It should never be do it to please anyone else. First, you do it for you. You can always choose to do things for you that also please somebody else. You can do both. But don't ever do something just because you think it will please someone else, or just because you think it will make you more attractive, or just because you think someone will stay with you. It's not healthy. And you don't like it when people do that shit to you, so don't be giving me no, but. No, enough. It's important for our own emotional stability as ladies to be consistent in who we are. And usually, do you know where that usually starts? It usually starts with doing our shadow work with our families. Because oftentimes we become inconsistent about who we are because of our social groups, our families, our friends, the people that we work with, stuff like that. And when those other people, like if we have codependent dynamics with them, or we placate, or we are not being authentic through a lot of the day, then that stuff leaks back in a relationship. And likewise, if you don't have any social, if you don't connect with your family at all, or you don't have any friends, same shit happens because it's usually the same origin, you know? And you want to make sure that, like, the people that are around you most often are the people that are supporting you, not the people that are criticizing you or giving you disappointed looks, or that you have weird strings attached to get financial or social support or something. Like, you want people around you that are like, you know what, you're freaking awesome. Like, not people that placate you and blow smoke up your butt. I mean, they should be people that be like, hey, you have a huge booger hanging out your nose, and I just thought you should know so you don't walk around with it, right? And you also want some people around you that are like, you know, there might be easier ways to approach this. And, people that are willing to call you in. I've kind of removed calling out from my vocabulary because there's a big difference between calling someone out and calling someone in. Like, to go and call out somebody, you might be like, you're a horrible person. You never call me. Or you do this, blah, blah, blah. You're a deadbeat dad. How about that one? Whereas when you call someone in, you could simply say, I feel so much better when you get back to me in a timely manner, and I really appreciate feeling better. It's that simple, right? It's actually very effective. Most people do not expect you to say it that way, and they're usually so relieved, especially men, that you use short sentences, smaller words, and that you obviously aren't mad, though you're still communicating that if they don't do what you want, you're not going to experience that happiness that you very much like experiencing. Do you know how much more motivated men in particular are when you tell them what you want to have happen? Far more than when you tell them what you don't want to have happen? Because guess what? How many of us in the world enjoy somebody who goes, I don't like that. I don't like this. I don't want this. You're doing this wrong. You're doing it wrong. I told you were going to do it wrong. See, I told you so you did it wrong. How many people like that shit? Nobody. Nobody likes that shit. Not at all, okay? So you want to get to a place where you don't feel like you need to be that person. That you feel like you can come into, well, pretty much any relationship that you want, and you're going to be who you say you are. And you're going to allow the people, I guess if you're in a polyamorous dynamic, right? The people. If you're going to allow a person or a people to come into your life, you should be allowing them to come in as themselves and be who they say they are, which I don't care if you met them like 20, 30 years ago and whatever and had a fling. If you have not known them for more than, I'm going to say, 2 years, you do not know them yet. You know parts of them. You might know intimate parts of them, but you don't know enough about them because, they say within a year, we're already fairly different from where we were at the start of a year. And at the end of 5 years, we're almost completely different people than where we were. And a very common relationship problem that people get into is where they get into it with this expectation that the person we met in that limerence honeymoon stage before we even really knew if we actually liked who they really are is that then they change. And then in marriages, people change, right? So we had this like fantasy bonding thing going on that the charming, preened and person that's got accoutrements and smells nice and puts in all the extra effort, that they were always going to be that person. And here's the thing, even if you had a healthy, emotionally secure honeymoon period that lasted the full 2 years, maybe a little bit more than that, and things went smoothly, you're still by that 5 year mark, that 7 year itch mark, you're still going to notice. It's going to be noticeable that you're each a little bit different. And well, it could be a lot different too. It depends. Some people go at a faster pace and others go at a slower pace. So you can't have this expectation of always being the same person, either in terms of, oh, being who you say you are, but you also can't have that expectation that, like, they're going to stay the same always. You have to kind of be in a flowing place about it. Like, you want to be looking at you on a fairly consistent basis, you know? Make it a fun game to be like, you know what? I noticed this whole week I've been moody, or I noticed that this week I had a fair amount of energy and that was good. And you know what? I noticed that I drank extra water then too, because then you can repeat the pattern that you like, right? Get out of that moody phase. And then as you do that over time, you become more able to be conscious of what you would like to do, and rather than running on old loops of patterns that feel like you don't have any control over them. So when you start to observe your own patterns, just simple things like how much water do you drink every day or every week and things like that, get into journaling it. It's actually quite therapeutic, first of all, but you can genuinely look at it and then look at how did you feel that week that you didn't have much water. How did you feel the week that you had way more water than you expected? Like, or, on those emotional moments, like maybe eating better and having enough water doesn't necessarily like make the emotional times go away per se, but maybe the ability to sit and focus on the journaling about water and the drinking the water helps give you a place to put that emotional energy that means that it kind of neutralizes its effect on your other relationships, right? And then, like I said, look at your social life. Look at who surrounds you. I feel like I'm cabot trailing at this point. I love all of you who are still listening and who will listen all the way through and understand. So, with your social support system, like, even if you feel like you could be wrong, if you don't feel supported by your family, your friends, if you don't feel like you can just be yourself with most of the people you spend most of your time with, then that's going to affect your relationships. There's no way that it's not, because how many people do you have around you that are like, hey, what cool thing are you up to today? You're always up to something cool. How many people do you have in your life that are like, hey, tell me what you're grateful for today? How many people do you have in your life that are, they don't call you up just because they need something or to emotionally dump on you or to say, oh, you didn't do that thing right again? How many people do you call for that matter? How many people do you call just because you want to call them? Like, not because they're somebody popular or not because you need something or you want to do an event or a political thing or whatever thing. How many people do you just like, hey, dude, what you doing? You know what I mean? Like, how many people do you reach out to for that? And how many reach out to you for it? And how would you feel like, I mean, let's say that you, like, either the person you already are deeply in love with versus you're looking for someone you want to be deeply in love with. Like, what if the person that you fall in love with is totally not in the norms of your social group and you totally love everything about them? You have no problems with anything about them, the oppositeness. You feel like you can sit in your place comfortably and either be their polar opposite or you can go their way a little bit, they'll go your way, whatever it is. Like, you're happy with it. Maybe it's just culturally different or religiously different. Like, if the social group around you, if you feel like they would not support you in being with somebody like that, what a lot of people do is they try to pick a partner that they feel like will fit their social group, and then they wonder why their relationships are not going very well. You know what I mean? Because the problem is you're trying to pick a partner that will please people who are already and have consistently throughout your life displayed that they're typically miserable people who like to criticize and be icy and cold and stuff like that. Like if they're unsupportive with you on a regular basis, picking a partner they might like is likely to leave you feeling even more unsupported. You know what I mean? And these are things that you want to look at. I mean, if you're in a relationship with someone, then work on that shit ASAP. I can guarantee you your man is biting his tongue a lot. A lot. And even of the time, even if he's more vocal, you know what? Appreciate it. In any case, you want to work on being consistent for you. You want to look at, you know what, how much more stable would your life feel if you just didn't feel so stressed out all the time? Like, wouldn't that feel great for you? And then just add on the deliciousness that when you get your man to you, or when you find your delicious man, or if you're doing poly, you find multiple delicious men, whatever your pleasure is. When you get there, you know that you're going to feel consistent about who you are, and that you're not going to have to worry about like half of the things that the world worries about in relationships, because when you trust yourself and you love yourself and you know who you are, in a flowing way with consideration for changes over time, because you don't need to hold yourself into one perfect always bubble. When you get there, you can spot somebody very early on. I would say, at least for me, it's like as early as the first 5 minutes, but you know, let's say first 5 days of interactions, you can spot somebody who is not in an emotionally secure place in their life to be a viable dating partner. Okay? You can. This could be one of my jokes I put on Facebook of why I'm really still single. Everybody's sitting there saying, "Oh, because she's waiting for Rudy," and it's like I hold space open for him. I'm available for it. I mean, I wouldn't have been with him 20 years if I wasn't, but I'm mostly still single because I actually value my time. Like I value my heart. I'm not protecting it. It's just like when I sit down with a dude, like it depends. Am I seeing repeats of my beloved Rudy's playerly behavior or insecure behavior? I'm not really interested in going into another relationship like that. I already get enough adventure from that. So, like, but I like this though. Like, I like having those experiences where, like, a date might not go so well, but you know what? I learned something about people. And I learned something about me, and I learned about boundaries. And by being open to such experiences, my boundaries are in a really great place. And I also know that guys get oddly addicted to me, especially when I'm in a space of like just holding healthy boundaries. It's weird. It's weird how I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not complaining, but it's weird how attracted guys are to a woman that not just that can say no. I'm not no, 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 ladies. I'm not talking about the games you play where you go and you're like, "Ooh, look at me," and then I'm not interested. No, I mean like from the first moment you interact with them, you interact as a friend. And if it becomes flirtation, that you hold the space that you are a lady and you will flirt with them and do what things that are fun with that when they're being a gentleman. And when they're not, you don't treat them differently. You never draw them in just to tease them. You don't do that weird back and forth toxic shit. No. But you know what? Like I've had I've had more it's funny. I've had healthier-ish guys and really unhealthy guys. Both of them. Like I've had them try to come up and take their pass. And usually that is my response is like, I am a lady, or sometimes, you know what? I'm a motherfucking lady. When you act like a gentleman, we can talk more. And you know how many of them, like, never quite got the courage to change their stripes to be able to approach me, but they wanted every bit of my attention. I still have, like, multiple places that I've been to at various different event places and karaoke bars and stuff where a lot of them will reach out to me just to see if I'm going to come out so they can hang out with me. And what's funny is I typically don't then go and hang out at places like that if there's people like that, because I don't really, you know what, I don't really believe in accidents of those sorts. And two, like, I don't need that kind of attention. It's, when I have a partner, I like them to be a certain amount of needy with me. I'd actually find it quite adorable. Though when it comes to like newnesses and things like that, like, I don't know. I like a strong, confident approach. And I like to have I'm going to say a delicate, confident approach, because I like to be in feminine energy. I'm feminine. I'm a lady, And you can get to that place when you're not constantly looking for every interaction to be like the perfect, most romantic, blow it over the moon experience, and instead looking at what can I enjoy from this and what can I learn from this that will help me feel more secure with myself first, and that will make me feel even more delicious as a delightful partner to a man. All right, y'all, I feel like I've probably given more than enough information and Cabot trails for those of you that wanted it and find it delicious. Thank you for listening. Thank you for liking, sharing, subscribing, and I'll catch you in the next video.